Alright, what's up guys, it's Zero here, and we are here for our monthly early impressions of the new set. This time we're taking a look at set 9. Set 9 gave us support for Shadows, Golds, Angels, and Aqua Force. The really big bunch of support being for Shadows because this set introduces support for Luard, I know an archer that a lot of people love. So without further ado, we will go on and look at the set. So first off, take a look at Luard or Shadows because this is the biggest one. So let's take a look at this one first. So first off, for the GRs they got Dragdriver, and for Luard they got Dragdriver and Augma. So Dragdriver skill in 0 is Ritual 3. So you know what Ritual is. Ritual is you count how many grade 1s in your drop. So Ritual 3 means you have 3 grade 1s in your drop zone. So Ritual 3 on place, you can flip anything in your G zone face up to call a grade 1 from your deck per face up copy of Dragdriver you have in your G zone. So if you strike this and flip a Dragdriver, you can call 1 because you have 1 face up. Next try that you do against flip no, then you can call 2, etc, etc. So do that, and then those grade 1s get 1k per grade 1 in your drop zone. So this card floods the board out, and then GB3 once per turn you can return 2 cards from your drop zone to the bottom of your deck, and retire 1 card with the Ritual ability to give him a crit. So this card is basically used just to flood a board and to get a crit to try to finish games off like that. So it's cool. I actually don't think this card is that integral to the deck. It's nice to have. I definitely think you need to have a few copies of it in your G zone for this deck to function smoothly, but I don't think it's something that you need to go out of your way to get. I think 3 copies of Dragdriver is probably enough for this deck. So Dragdriver, pretty good card, pretty okay card. I think it's pretty solid, not amazing, not terrible. It's nice to have, but at the moment it's not like a priority for this deck to have. So yeah, and then but I do think the coolest card for this deck is the Augma. So his skill is Ritual 5 once per turn, CB1 flip anything. So usually with this, because it's not a G flip, usually you flip a copy of a Dragdriver so that if you ever want to go into it later, you can have more copies of Dragdriver face up. You can call more grade ones from your deck. So you flip, and then you choose any number of your cards, any number of your grade 1s, and retire them, and then per face up, and then per card you retired from this effect for quote unquote cost. Because you sacking your card that isn't actually part of the cost, it's just enough. It's part of the effect. So for every 1 you sacked off your board, you retire 1 card on your opponent's board with priority to random back row. So say if you sack off 3 cards, it would hit the 3 back row instead of any in the front row. So so you do that, and then if there are 3 or more total retired, including both yours and your opponent, you draw 1. There was 5 or more, you draw an extra 1. And then at the start of your opponent's turn, for every card you retire, and then for every card that's left on their board that stays on they still have on the board at the start of their turn, they discard 1 card from their hand. So the effect is really confusing, but basically, let's say you use Augma and you retired 5 cards off your board, and then you go to battle phase, you attack, and then they have, let's just say they have like 2 back row left because the back row had anti-retire, right? At the start of their turn, they would have to discard 3 cards because you retired 5 of your own cards, and they still have 2 left. 5 minus 2 is 3, therefore they have to discard 3. So I think this is very neat because against decks like Neo Nectar, or decks that play like anti-retire back row or something like that, like example like a starter, anti-retire starter, or like more anti-retire back row, this really punishes them because yes, they get to keep their board, but they also have to discard cards out of their hand for that cost. This also works, for example, if you for example, you sacked out 5 and they had nothing on their board on the entire time, they had to discard 5 because it counts. Actually, if I were wrong, it actually counts how much you didn't retire at the time. So it's not how much at the start of turn, it's how much they didn't have to. So for example, if you retired 5 and then they retired 5 off the skill, they discard nothing. If you retired 5 and they just retired nothing because they didn't have a board, or the entire board had anti-retire or resist or whatever, they had to discard 5 for the skill. So let's reword the example so to make it more clear, because I know this effect is actually really confusing. So let's say you retire 5 of your cards for the quote unquote cost, right? And they retired nothing because their board was empty. They'd have to discard 5 at the start of their turn. Let's say they had one anti-retire starter, and that was the only thing on their board. You retired and you retired 1 anti-retire and say 1 retireable card. You retire 5. The anti-retire stays alive, and if the other card dies, they discard 4. So the effect is kind of confusing, but basically for every card you didn't retire, for every card you retired minus the number of cards they couldn't retire, equals the amount of cards you have to discard. So that was really cool. It punishes decks that keep boards alive, basically. But this card really sucks against decks that can just shit out a board every single turn. For example, something like Gold, this deck kind of sucks against that because they can just shit out a board every turn and they still don't have to discard anything. So yeah, it's nice in certain matchups, not so nice in others. But I think this card is definitely the most interesting card for this deck at the moment, and I think it's probably the reason to play this. To at least play that, because this really does punish something like Neo Nectar for having a board full of resist. So yeah, that's the Augma. And then the last GR for Shadows is Raging Rapt. This is a Revenger. This is the true Revenger. This is the Raging Form Stride. Its skill is Limerick 4. If your heart is a Raging, I think, you can Soul Blast 1, CB 1. I don't know the class of this card, because I don't think Revenger is very good, should be real. But this card basically just keeps rewriting and stuff in the G zone. You like stride it, you swing, and then you pay your cost or whatever it was, and then you put it back in the G zone, and then you can stride another copy of Raging Rapt, and then you just keep doing that. As long as you can pay cost, you can just keep striding. You could theoretically burn through all 4 and swing like with like 4 Vanguard attacks or something like that. But pretty cool. But 1 is Limerick 4, meaning you could potentially heal out of your Limerick 4 and just stop that loop all the way there. And 2, the cost is super intensive because I think it's sack 3, and sacking 3 means you have to have ways to recall stuff during the battle phase. So this card's cool, it's neat, but at the end of the day, I think Revengers are kind of outdated. I think they're a little bit too slow, because this deck has to be played in the Revenger deck, obviously, because of Raging Rapt. But yeah, I think just because of that, I think this card is cool. I think it's something nice you can play around with. Like if you want just a cheap upgrade to your old deck, and you want to pull out the Raging form again, this is definitely an option for you now, because you can just shove this into Revengers, and deck is probably like has a cool new card to play with. So yeah. That's my thoughts on that. I'm not gonna look at the other Revenger stuff because I don't think it's very good per se. So just I'm probably gonna ignore all the Revenger stuff from now on. I will talk about, but Raging Rapt is an okay card by itself for the deck. But yeah, overall Revengers I think aren't very good anymore. So that's that. And then finally the rest of the cards for Luard. There's the Carnivore Dragon. Once per turn, retire 1, and then you retire 1 with retire 1 with Proud to back row, and then you get power. So I don't know, whatever, just net back row, I guess, but I don't own a single copy of this card, nor do I want any copies of this card. This card's kind of whatever. You definitely do not have space to play this in the actual, like, fully built Luard deck. It's just an option. Don't think it's particularly good, so yeah. But it's there if you are unfortunate enough to not have the GRs from always, because this deck does need a bunch of the older GRs. You need Aura Geysers, you need both the Diablos for the deck for Gino to be nice, so it's there if you don't have those cards, but otherwise you probably wouldn't play this. Next up, for the other cards, you have the actual Heart, the Drag Heart Luard. Skill is Ritual 3. At the start of your turn, you can choose 2 cards from your drop zone and put them back to the bottom of your deck, and then during this turn you can get stride for free. So as long as you have 3 grade 1s in your drop, you can just put 2 cards back and then you can stride for free. And since it's still striding, when you stride, you still draw the 1 for the striding rules in 0, because you don't draw your cards in hand. It's the triple drive. It's inlaid by like a draw 1 instead. So this Luard just turns your strides into a +1, which is really nice. And his other skill is when you stride on top of it, CB1, retire 1 of your rears to choose 2 grade 1 or lower cards from your deck and call them to the board. So you usually can call, like, usually the first 2 cards you call are Sword Breakers, so draw 2. And then after that, you usually call like the Owls, or like maybe one of the crits to sack off for stuff. So that's pretty cool there. And then on play plus rookie. So I think Luard itself the Heart is probably one of the reasons to play this deck, because I think striding for free is really nice. The +2 is really good, and really just tutor all like the really good pieces from your deck is really good. So I think Luard is a very powerful, a very good card, and the thing holding this entire deck together. Because I think without the Luard letting you generate so much advantage, this deck probably would not work, because Luard, if you see from the Augmas are only like real source to retire, and even then you need to sack off at least 4 to get to the front row. This deck just doesn't really have ways to like push or like retire and stuff to actually get damage into the face. So this deck has to be forced onto aggro triggers to push, and because Luard and like Dragdriver sometimes shits you out of board and gives you lots of pluses, you're actually allowed to play something like 9 crit in this deck. And because of the fact that Luard lets you stride for free, you can also afford to play effect triggers, mainly this owl. This is the Abyssal Owl, the 2 owl. I can never remember which one's which. I think this is the Bilal Owl, but it lets you play cards like this. This card's really good. I guess I'll go over right now. GB1, Ritual 3 in your drop zone. If you're at the end of turn your Vanguard's a Luard, it goes back to the bottom of your deck, and then when this card is retired for cost, and if you're Vanguard the Luard, you get to draw 1. So it's a crit that recycles itself. It's a crit that when retired for cost lets you draw 1, and it's a crit that's a 0, meaning it can be called off of the Luard stride bonus to be retired for cost to draw you 1. So I think this card is very, very good for the deck. I think this card is definitely played in the deck, and because of the fact that this deck can stride for free, you don't have to worry about not having stride fodder in hand anymore. So very, very good card in the context of Luard. I wish this card had the when damaged draw 1. That's kind of unfortunate this card doesn't have that, but even without that, this card is still really, really good for this deck. So definitely, this crit is definitely played. And speaking of the other owl, I think this is the Abyssal Owl. On play, discard a card search deck for a Luard, so this is like the stride fodder for the deck that lets you search your main ride. And then Ritual 3, you remember the Luard and the card retired for cost, CC 1, hard ones per turn. So they slap the hard ones per turn on this, meaning you can't just stack off 2 and CC 2. You can only CC with this card once, even if you stack on multiple of it. So still really good because it's still your main source of CC, and being your main card that you search your ride is also really, really good. So yeah, I think this card is very, very, very good for the deck. Definitely played at 4 in this deck, without a doubt. And then next off, we have the PG. I do not remember what this card does. It's like, in Drop Zone Ritual 3, I think you like return a copy of itself to the deck, and you can add it back to your hand. But the biggest issue with this card is that this card, when used as a PG from hand, it gets binded. So you cannot loop these PGs infinitely. And I think because of the fact that this card binds itself after 1 use, I think that's the sole reason why this card is not played in the deck. I personally am still on the CC PGs instead. I think the CC is still nicer to have, and it's because it's recyclable, because you can just shove it back because there's a bunch of spells that you put cards back in your deck. This card being binded after 1 use I think just kills all the use for this card, so I don't think this card's worth playing in the deck. But interesting to note, it lets you recycle PGs, I guess, but other than that, I think this card's kind of whatever. And next up, we have the Morfessa. First skill is Ritual 3, GB1 is unit attacks to Vanguard, +5. And then Ritual 3, on hit to ban, CB1 to call grade 1 from your deck. Which is cool, but if you want to multi-attack with this, at the moment there's not a whole lot of targets you can call. Or rather, targets you want to call, because if you try to multi-attack with this, you will be calling a grade 1 to the front, meaning you are not having to intercept. You can alleviate this if you're playing the Dream Saga Painter and you stride it into a Diablo, because then that Dream Saga will be kind of grade 1, you can call it from the deck with the Morfessa, which is pretty cool there. But Morfessa is mainly used for her last skill, which is Drop Zone. It counts as a grade 1. So -1 grade, meaning it counts as a grade 1, meaning it adds to your ritual count. So Morfessa is mainly used for the Drop Zone skill. The +5 is nice because if the forest front row is open, you can scale properly with the 7k booster. 9 + 4 + 7 hits 21, meaning you can scale properly, which is pretty cool. And the second skill we're gonna call, you can just use it as a +1. I guess you just use it, hit call grade 1 to back saver for later, which is pretty cool, but mainly played for the -1 rate in Drop Zone skill. So yeah. And then finally, Luard has these 2 grade 2s. They are both, in my opinion, kind of whatever. I don't think either of these cards are actually that good. This card lets you like recycle a card, and see, it gets power, and then it lets you recycle a card, and then it does something that I think like on hit retire 1 to draw 1. It's like cool. His skill is Soul Last 1, retire something in the same column as this card to draw 1, and then it gets power. So I think these cards are cool. I think they're like fine, like 1 or 2 of them in the deck, but I think these cards actually aren't played in the deck in my opinion. I think the grade 2 that will take the spot of these cards that are supposed to be in the deck, because they probably want you to play these. I think the main actually belongs in the deck over these cards, and the main lets you just Turbo Ritual and just have early game present, help you just filter through your deck. So I think these cards are kind of whatever. I personally don't play them at high counts myself, so yeah, I think these cards are both kind of whatever. I think they're there. I think they're nice to have, but overall, I think they're not needed for the deck. And I think that is it for Shadows, because these 2 are like generic cards, and this is CB1 on hit CB1 draw 1 on GB slot to GB1. This is GB1 on hit CC2 on hit the ban. This is more Avenger cards, and yeah, I think overall these are the Shadow cards. So thoughts? I think Revengers are kind of whatever. I think they're like cool, I guess. But I think Luard is a baseline playable deck. I don't think it's like a top tier meta threat or anything, but I do think it is at least playable. Pretty fun to play. I played a bit with it myself, but I think it is a baseline playable deck. It's got tools needed to cheese wins every once in a while, but I don't think it's definitely like a top tier contender or anything like that. So yeah, definitely in my opinion a future investment. You get these cards and get them now, so that when Luard becomes good with its like 2 or 3 later waves of support, you don't need to go back to get these. So Luard definitely a playable deck now, but a future investment for later. Next up, I guess we'll look at Angels. I'm gonna be real, I don't know shit about this clan. I don't care, to be perfectly honest, either. This is a Celestial Stride. It's cool. It calls things, I think. It's whatever. These are rescue cards. I don't know what they do. I honestly don't care either. Actually, I think it's a Celestial card too. But again, I don't care what these cards do. But the GR is pretty cool because it lets you skill. I think it just does like just rescue checks, which is kind of whatever. But you play this card because of its G-Zone skill, where you have 2 or more face-up copies of this card in your G-Zone. It lets you put back all the cards you rescue checked back to the bottom of your deck, meaning it lets you not deck out, because rescue as a mechanic in 0 is actually just deck out turbo, and this card prevents you from decking out. So I think you need 2 of this card for future reasons, literally just because it helps you prevent deck out. It also flips on first stride, meaning it lets you turbo Gaz GB2, so I think it's pretty useful too. But overall, I think Angels are still kind of bleh. I haven't ran into any. I haven't played it myself, but doesn't seem very impressive to me. But this card definitely helps the deck become actually playable now. So there is that. Next off, we have Aqua Force, and I don't remember what that last clan was. It was oh yeah, Gold's right. Gold's got a few cards. Mainly Gurgir support with like 1 Garmor. Garmor's kind of whatever. He can be played in Worlds, which is pretty cool, but he just like calls out a board, does like thing, gets a crit, gets power. It's kind of whatever. It's just there. It's cool. This dude's pretty good because his skill is Unite. If your Vanguard's a Gurgir, +4, meaning he's a 13k attacker, solo attacker, and then GB1. On play, discard a card, checked out 3, call 1 from among them. So this is a better Lopier now for this deck. Obviously, Lopier isn't GB1 locked, but this card being a solo attacker isn't much better in my opinion. So this card is definitely a nice addition to the deck. The new Grade 3 Gurgir, his skill is GB2. When you are in Unite, your back row gains Intercept after Unite. So how this basically works is to proc Unite, you need to call 2 cards. But you cannot call cards on your opponent's turn, right? So basically, when you guard twice from your hand, you proc Unite, and then the thing you're backing Intercept. So for example, let's say you're playing against Altmile, a very common deck, right? Very common deck. Everyone knows what that deck does. Let's say they're doing their Tengen tournament. They go rear, Van hits once, you PG. They call like Benizol calls Twin Sword. Benizol hits. You have now proc Unite because you've guarded twice, and now your back row gets Intercept, meaning that Twin Sword that they called off in the Benizol needs to swing into the back row now because they now have Intercept. So that's how that works, which is pretty cool. I think this really shuts down a lot of these like multi-attack decks that just clear Intercepts and go face. So I think this skill is very, very good for against the multi-attack decks. And then its other skill is its stride bonus skill is when you stride on top of it, Soul Blast 1, CB1, check top 4, call 1 card from among them. Then, if the card you called has the Unite ability, you call 1 more card off the top of your deck as rest. So this skill is cool because it is a +2, but because the card goes to rest, it just kind of clogs the board sometimes. The only situation where I can see this skill being good for the most part is either you just need a board to fill up to use the old Gurgir stride to get the back row Intercept, just like so you need a full board, or if you specifically call the PG off of the top 4, because if you call PG, the Unite PG, you call PG, next card it called it off the top, you now Unite, and then the PG can put the card that came as a rest back to your deck, so that then trait goes back to your hand. So those are the applications for this card there. I think the GB2 is very interesting. I think it depends mainly on the meta which Gurgir is better, because honestly speaking, I don't think this Gurgir stride bonus skill is that much better than the old Gurgir skill, just because of the fact that the second card is called the rest and doesn't give power like the old Gurgir. But I do think that both Gurgirs will be played in the deck, and I do think that which Gurgir is better is highly dependent on the meta. I think at the moment, with Altmile and Asha running around as the 2 best decks, I personally think, specifically against Altmile, this Gurgir is probably better than the other Gurgir because of the GB2 skill here. But against something like Kagero, for example, this Gurgir is by far worse than the old Gurgir because Kagero just kill your entire board and this skill will be irrelevant. So yeah, I think this Gurgir here is highly dependent on which Gurgir is better, is highly dependent on the current meta. And right now, I think this Gurgir is fine and probably better than the current Gurgir. But you definitely still play both, and I think this card is actually a very good addition to the deck. And finally, we have the new Gurgir Stride. His skill is once per turn, CB1, G Persona Flip, and discard 1 card to gain the following 2 abilities. Unite when this unit attacks, so this can work when you swing it rear as well. Check top 7 cards of your deck and call one card from among them, and then for every base up card in your G zone with Gurgit in its name, your rears get +2. I don't remember this front row rears only or all your rears, but it's cool. It's a first stride that flips. It can make your board big, and it checks top 7 to call a card, and it's on attack instead of on hit. So I think this card is like a better. This card is basically Rising Shine plus Campbell put together one card, and it's just better than both those cards of first strides now. So I think this Gurgit is now your new best first ride, which I think you want. So I think you want at least 2 copies of this card in the deck, maybe even 4. But I think this card is actually pretty good for the deck. So yeah, very nice inclusion deck. And then these double rares, I don't know what they do. Nor do I care. This is whatever. I'm sure this card's not better than the Gurgit or the Dongle, and this stride just gives stride's Unite. Soul Treasure and CC1's cool. You don't really need it though, so it's there, I guess. But yeah. And finally, we have Aqua Force. I think Aqua Force is mainly Maelstrom support, I'm pretty sure. But their GR is the Wailing Thabas. Its skill is Wave 3 or more. When you attack the Vanguard CB1, you get 5k per thing that attack this turn. So if you just want rear van, that's like +15, I think. And then it gets Glory. It gets Glory Restrict, which is cool, I guess. Aqua Force now the Guard Restrict, and this Thabas doesn't need to flip anything, so realistically you only need like 2 of this card to make this card function. Unfortunately I pulled 4, but this card is cool because it gives Aqua Force a Guard Restrict now in situations where you just can't go for Lambert, so you don't have like your 4th attack extender or something, so it's a nice addition to the deck. And then fight GB3, when this unit attacks a Vanguard, you retire 1 card with Proud to back row per wave of that battle. So if you like want like Basil swap, like Basil DS swap, swing, it's like the 4th wave, so you retire 4 cards. I think I'm not actually too sure. I basically have read this card once. I think it does something like that, but this card is basically played for the Guard Restrict. Pretty nice, I guess. Not needing to flip anything at all is also pretty cool because it's means you only need like 1 or 2 of it for the G zone. So I think it's an okay card, okay addition deck, but I don't think it like makes Aqua Force significantly better or anything. But the majority of the bulk of the support for Aqua Force actually went to Maelstrom. Maelstrom got I think this is the, I don't remember what the name of this card is, the Angry Maelstrom, something like that. Once per turn, if your Maelstrom Heart G flip, add a Maelstrom from your deck to your hand, and then if your Maelstrom and Soul plus a crit +5. So let's use setup for next turn. Let's get the crit via Maelstrom Soul, which is pretty cool, but it's just there. I don't think this card's too good. Break Ride Maelstrom gives you grade 0 Guard Restrict on Break Ride, which is whatever. 3rd wave, you can search for a Maelstrom from deck. It's cool, I guess. It's kind of whatever. But I think the reason to play Maelstrom is actually because of this card. This card just an 11k Basil. Nothing else to it. It's an 11k Basil, meaning it's a solo attacker and it's a swapper, so yeah. But that's it for the set. I think my overall impression, I think the set's honestly kind of whatever. I'm gonna be real. I don't think anything in the set's gonna break the meta as far as I can tell from here. Luard is okay. Revengers are there. Aqua Force is there. Angels are there. Golds were already good, and they just got more things, so they get even better. But overall, I think the set's it's whatever. If you don't care for this stuff yourself, don't bother pulling, in my opinion. But it is a tower set, so you might want to pull just for that. But yeah, that's it for my thoughts. Again, Luard okay. Golds got better. Everything else kind of whatever. So yeah, that's it for this video. Let me know down below in the comments what you think about the set yourself, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.